Welcome to the Alien Pro Podcast. It's Saturday, October 7th. We got Matt here and a special guest, Teri. Is it Lynge? I'm sorry, I want to pronounce it correctly.
Lynge-Kehl.
Ling
Lynge-Kehl.
Ling Keel, MUFON board member, probably our highest power
Yes.
guest we've ever had.
Celebrity guest.
A celebrity guest.
Yes.
It's awesome, you know. So tell us a little bit about yourself there, Teri.
Well, gee, there's so much to tell.
I
I
know.
don't know where to start.
Yeah, right.
Start with MUFON because we're members. We're members of the Northern California MUFON.
Oh, nice.
We're
Oh, I'm
card
glad to hear
carrying
that.
members and
Yay.
budding investigators. At some point, I think.
Wonderful.
And
Yeah, so
go
you
ahead.
need to do that. You need to follow through and
Yeah.
become field investigators. We need investigators. And I'm the director of memberships
Right.
also. And I'm also the consultant with MUFON University, which is something new and upcoming. And just got released the other day. And that's how we're going to train all of our new FIs in the future.
Nice.
And it has been a wonderful work with the efforts of Mindy Tout Fest and Jim Millard, Robert Dio, Tomas Carlson, Steve Hudgens, and Bob Spearing. So it has really been a lot of work. We've been working on it for about 3 years, and we just released it the other day. So when you do join up to become new field investigators, we will certify you,
Excited.
and you'll go through the MUFON University and get your credentials. It's wonderful. So
Get
I
one of
hope you
these.
guys
Got one of
follow through.
these.
Awesome.
And I got to
One of
tell
my
you, is it going to
favorite
be now? Are you still going to do the test online, or is it?
Yes, everything will be done online now. Yes, uh-huh.
I have to tell you, I'm an epic failure. I took it 3 times. I'm on my 6-month waiting period to take it again.
Well,
I
we will forgive you,
Yes.
and you just go
Do
on.
better. Do better, Doug. Come on.
I'm a little embarrassed, but I told our field one of our current field investigators and our director, I said I didn't. I got a 70 and 275s. I just didn't quite make it.
That's okay. You will the next time. You'll make
I
it.
will.
I'm
I'm
still
gonna study
studying.
harder.
So I'm not ready yet. Now that Doug's
Okay.
failed a few
Okay.
times. He's
Well,
scaring
let us
me.
know when you are.
All right.
Our doors are always open.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what ours say. They said, you just keep trying.
Yep. Keep studying.
Cool. So, what's it like to be a board member for MUFON?
It is amazing. It's really wonderful. I love being on the board. We have an amazing group of individuals who are very dedicated and very serious about making it MUFON into what it is today.
Right.
We've taken it from a lot of troubled years and past issues, and we are moving forward. And the group that we've got together is just amazing. A lot of very intelligent individuals, and a big shout out to uh, Dave McDonald, who is our executive director, and he does an amazing job. He has basically saved MUFON from some of the things we've had endured in the past and brought us into the 20th century, 21st century. And we are just so proud of him and all that he has accomplished.
Yeah.
And it's really wonderful being on the board because we are setting all these new advances and, creating the new criteria, doing all the new things that need to be done. And ufology is just such an interesting, amazing field.
Yeah.
There is so much going on in the universe, so much going on our planet. And it really is a great place to be, to watch it all unfold and work with it on a daily basis. And boy, we really do. It's 24/7, even though no one gets paid. It's a passion
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
It's really a passion. I seem to have been, nipped in the bud back in the early 1979 when I had my first experience. And,
Wow.
I wasn't a fan of extraterrestrials or any of that. I just didn't believe in it. And I just thought it was all comic book entertainment. I really did.
Wow. It's
And
yeah. We know what
yeah,
it's like
and
not to be
so
paid. for something we love.
Yeah, no kidding.
But it's awesome. It is an awesome subject, and tell us about your experience in '79. What happened?
Well, I was coming home from work one evening, and I was coming down the street that I would make my left to go into my little subdivision, and it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. I was working a night shift. My husband was working a day shift because we had two little boys at home. And I saw something hovered over the railroad track. And I thought to myself, that's got to be a train, you know. And as I got closer, I'm looking at it through this little Honda Civic that I was driving. You know how tiny those little windows are. But as I'm looking at it, I'm like, what? Are you kidding me?
Right.
That can't be. I was overwhelmed. I was stupefied. I couldn't even believe it. And I slapped myself on the face really hard and said, have you fallen asleep? Are you dreaming?
Right.
Am I going to have an accident? Or did I have an accident? What's going on here? And I didn't really know how to
process,
how to react.
Yeah.
I mean, total disbelief. And I even said out loud to God, because I believe in God, you got to be kidding me. Those can't be real. That cannot be real. And sure enough, my car shut off, rolled right up to the darn thing. I was about 190 feet from it, and just under 200 feet. And this blue light was going around the center of this spherical craft. And it was 1979, so we didn't have any of the lights that look like that, nothing from, I forget what those are called. I wish I could remember. But anyway, we didn't have any crazy lights. We just only had, your regular lights.
There's no
and
LEDs.
This thing was just...
Right.
No drones and things.
Yeah,
right.
Nothing like that. Yeah. And it blew me away. I just couldn't believe how beautiful it was. And I felt like the thing was kind of talking to me or reaching out to me. And I'm sitting in my car going, Terry, whatever you do, don't get out of the car. And the minute I said that, my hand went over, turned the door, opened the door, and I got out. And I thought, what? Am I under some kind of control here? And it really kind of freaked me out. And I thought, I'm getting out of the car. Why am I getting out of the car? And I'm talking to myself through that experience the whole time. It's like one side was here and one side was here. And I was fighting like within my mind, between my right and left ear, there was this fight going on, like, get back in the car and don't get out of the car. And then, I'm getting out of the car. So nothing made sense. Like I was literally being controlled. And trust me, as I look back now, many years later, I was being controlled.
Right.
Yeah.
And the next thing I knew, I'm holding on to my door jamb, white knuckling it, going, oh my God, that thing is beautiful. Oh my God, that thing is absolutely stunning. I've never seen anything like that. And I was looking for a door or windows or rivets or something that showed that it was like a train, like man-made.
Human tank,
This thing was solid. It was beautiful.
Wow.
What was your question?
How big was it? I mean, could you tell?
Well, I went back and I measured 42 feet wide, and I'm going to say about 6 feet high, maybe.
Wow. Okay, continuing with the story, a little technical difficulties. Go ahead, Terry. Sorry about that.
Well, so anyway, as I was standing there looking at this, and I was figuring out that this thing was, in fact, communicating with me, even though I couldn't wrap my mind around that at the time. Somehow or other, it was putting me at ease. And I then, after staring at this thing and trying to figure out why it was even there, and the fact that it was definitely not from this earth, because there was just one piece that formed this. There was no rivets, there were no sections, nothing like that. It was all one amazing piece. And, there were no imperfections of any kind. I mean, I was just looking for rust or something that you would see on a normal man-made vehicle. and nothing registered. And then this huge light from over to the right, where there was a big empty field running along the railroad tracks there, came right at me. And from that light, a tall white, which absolutely flipped me out. I mean,
Wow.
I was 27 at the time. I was alone. It was the middle of the night. I'd been standing out in the road, and I looked down because I wanted to look away from it. And I noticed I was about a good 2 or 3 feet off of the pavement.
Oh my
I
gosh.
wasn't standing
Wow.
on the pavement, and I thought, what?
Right.
How could that be? And this is how they maneuver you. They literally elevate you and move you. And he was pulling me over to that side. First, he was in my peripheral right eye view. And then he was, as my body was being turned and going, he was in my. I kept looking away because he was so ugly, like nothing
wow.
I'd ever seen. Very, very thin neck with a huge head and big eyes, very much like what you saw for extraterrestrials, but ugly and very strange looking. Almost. Have you ever put your thumb on a torch and you can see right straight through it? You can see right straight through
Right.
your,
Translucent.
your finger.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it was like. I mean, I could see right straight through this guy. He didn't have a bone structure, but he was very weird and very ugly, very long arms, very thin legs. It didn't even look like skeletal. It was even a little bit weirder looking than that. And I looked away and I must have panicked and fainted because then I don't remember anything.
Oh wow.
The next thing I remember is being on a different craft. There was another craft that had landed over to the right. So the one was still hovered over the railroad tracks, but this one over here had landed. And I woke up inside and I was in this pure white room, and there were no lights per se, but everything glowed, like the ceilings and the walls and the floor all had this white, soft white light coming out of it, which made it appear like regular light, but nothing like our light bulbs in 1979. And it was very soft and everything was like sucked down. It looked like there was nothing that you could move, like a chair you could move or a table you could move or a light you could move. It was all contained. And I sat up kind of and looked down. I was laying down on this table and I looked down and I saw I still had my clothes on, my uniform, and I had my little brown sandals on my feet. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm dressed. I'm out of here. And then I noticed the movement of 3 small, what I now know as, at the time I had no clue, is grays.
Right.
And one of them had their fingers on my left ankle, which scared me that I was being touched and didn't even understand what was going on and why am I here and what the heck is that? And then I thought, oh my God, where was that ugly, ugly other thing? And the minute I thought that, he was right here in my view, looking straight down at me as I'm laying on that slab. And he spoke to me, but not with his mouth, which I'd never heard of that before. And believe me, I was an unbeliever, so I didn't know about missing time, all this mental telepathy.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of that. I was only 27. I wasn't into that stuff. You could say I was a good Christian little girl, and so none of this made a bit of sense. And so he said to me, we are not going to harm you. We are not going to take you. And when he said, take me, I thought, take me where? And I mean, he was so hard to look at. He was so other than me. It was surreal. I could hardly even handle the moment. And all of a sudden I was out. I don't know what happened, but obviously I fainted from fear or I passed out or something. And the next thing I remembered was being back in front of my little Honda Civic. But I'm not the same girl that went in there.
Right.
When I went in, I was this skeptic, huge skeptic, not even wanting to be there, not a believer. And now I'm standing there now looking at the one that's hovered over the railroad track. And I'm like, don't leave me here. Don't leave me here. Please take me. I don't want to be here. Please take me with you. And I mean, I'm the mother of 2 children.
Wow.
Right.
It just did not make any sense to me. And I even said out loud, shut up. What are you saying?
Right.
And I'm standing in the middle of the road fighting with myself. And it was like me versus me. What are you talking about? And then I did it again, and I was almost in tears. I'm like, please don't leave me. Please don't leave me. And I was begging them. And I even screamed out, aren't I good enough? What's wrong with me that you won't take me?
Right.
Because they weren't responding at all. And I was shocked that those words left my mouth, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Right. With the price of eggs. And I didn't even understand it at all. But anyway, as it was like this, then it flipped.
Oh.
I mean, just like that.
Instant.
I mean, between you blinking, that thing flipped. It was that fast without any kind of movement of the trees. I mean, everything was still, like I was in some kind of a bubble. I couldn't hear anything. There was nothing, no breeze, no nothing, no crickets, no nothing. And however, I could see the light at 22nd and 30th Avenue, and I was like a good block and a half away, but I could hear it like I was standing right under it, going from click to red,
Oh,
click,
wow.
green,
Wow.
click to yellow.
Right.
It was so weird that I could hear that click,
Right.
but nothing else. And I thought, what is this? Sonic ears for only one thing?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Nothing made any sense. And so as I was, standing there, this thing then shot up and stopped, went up about I don't know, maybe above the tree line, and it just stopped. And now I'm crying, please come back, don't leave me here. And I kept doing that same thing, going, shut up.
Right. Conflicting. Like,
wow.
Yes.
yeah.
It
That's
was
scary.
really a very strange moment in my life. I will never forget it. I will never understand why.
Right.
Before I went into that other craft, I was just me. And then when I came out, I was me and something more.
Right.
And I had an understanding that they were good and it was okay and they were friendly and they were kind and I wanted to be with them. But how could I want to be anywhere but with my sons, whom I adored? Right. And anyhow, all of a sudden as it's up there, this big, huge red ball of fire exited from the bottom of the craft that was sitting there, and it was just doing this. And I could hear it, it was fire. When you're standing next to a fire pit and you hear the crackling and the burning and the singeing of things. And I mean, this thing was on fire. Wow. And I thought, oh my God, is it going to come down? Am I going to be consumed? Is this how they take you? They kill you, And then I was at total peace. And I thought, no, they're not taking me. And I don't know how long I stood there, but I stood there for a very long time while this happened. And then all of a sudden, between the blink of an eye, they both took off so fast out of my sight towards the Gulf of Mexico. I was in St. Petersburg, Florida, by the way.
Right.
And I just couldn't even believe it. And so that was my very first experience. Wow. And ever since then, I had found out that night. I went to my mother's because I was so freaked out. I said, oh my God, I got to talk to somebody. Once they were gone, I'm standing alone in the middle of the street, next to Morris Street and 28th Street North. And I'm standing there all by myself in the middle of the road, not a car, nothing. And I'm like, where is the rest of the world? Why am I all alone here in the middle of a city? And I just had my hands on my head and I said, I got to go talk to my mother. I have got to go wake my mother up. And she only lived a minute away. I was on 32nd Avenue North, and she was on 51st. So I just got in the car, and the darn little car started right up. Here it had shut off. I thought I was going to have to walk,
Right.
and the car started. And I'm like, oh, the car started. So I turned it around, went to my mother's, knocked on the door. She came to the door. Well, her husband came to the door, and then she let me in, and I said, Mom, put the coffee on. I got to talk to you. Oh, my God. Wait till you hear this. And so I sat there, and I'm telling her, and I'm freaked out, and I'm almost screaming. I'm really scared, and she's just looking at me, and I thought, uh-oh.
Yeah.
She thinks I'm an absolute kook.
Right.
Yep.
And so she just reaches over to me and pats me on the knee and goes, it's okay, Teri. I've seen them too.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
wow.
Oh, man.
I jumped up off that couch.
Right.
I looked at her and started screaming. I said, what? Are you kidding me? And this is why I remember I was 27, because I said this out loud, shaking my finger in my mother's face. I'm 27 years old. How could you not have told me about this? Why would you not have prepared me for something as bizarre as this crap? Why wouldn't you have helped me and let me know? And I was screaming at her, and she's like, Teri, calm down, calm down. And I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me? Yeah. I was scared out of my gourd. Then she tells me her and her husband, who rent their house out 3 months out of the year, because she worked at Honeywell Aerospace, and I had worked at Honeywell Aerospace in the early 70s and had been laid off, and I was waiting to come back on. They had worked on the Minuteman project, and then were working on the Gemini project, and they would lay you off so they wouldn't have to pay you or pay for your insurance.
Benefits.
Or
benefits.
Yeah. So they would just lay you off, but then they would bring you back as soon as they had something big. Well, my mother, who was actually kind of big with Honeywell, she was in management there in Clearwater, Florida. And she said to me, Teri, don't ever share this with anybody, because if you do, no one is ever going to hire you back at Honeywell. They're going to think you're a kook, and so you keep your mouth shut. But she told me that when they would go out for those 3 months on their houseboat, they had a beautiful houseboat, and they would tool along the Gulf of Mexico and go all over and just throw anchor over. They would rent their house out to these friends from Canada, and she said we would see these USOs, which she didn't know they were USOs at the time. She just said they would shoot up out of the Gulf and come out and hover over the water and then take off. And she said they would take off so fast you were like, did I see that? That's how crazy it would be. And her husband both saw that. So that's pretty interesting stuff. Then I found out, once I got involved 29 years later with MUFON, that my oldest brother had experiences with extraterrestrials at 9 years old. Wow. And then I was with my son one night in 2012, and the two of us had a combined UFO experience. So for 70 years, my family has been involved in extraterrestrial interventions and seeing crafts and having experiences, very powerful experiences, actually, because the one Joshua and I saw in 2012 was these 3 lights that actually came up near Tampa Bay, Florida, as we were going over the Howard Franklin Bridge. It looked like they may have come right out of MacDill Air Force Base, which is Central Command, for the United States of America. MacDill is Central Command. And NASA is right there in Cocoa Beach, right next to Cocoa Beach in Melbourne. So Florida is a very interesting state when it comes to extraterrestrial things that can happen there. And I thought maybe it was something coming out of MacDill because it was right over Tampa Bay. And so I looked at Josh and I said, humor me, but watch those lights. There's something very strange about those lights, Joshua. And he laughed at me and he said, oh, yeah, Mom, I'm sure they're UFOs. And I said, just humor me. And as we watched them, one was massive. No airplane has anything that big. Right. Another one was very small. And another one over here was just a little bit bigger. And I said, there's no plane that has 3 lights like that. Right. There's nothing that has anything like that. Joshua, watch it. And he goes, that is pretty weird, Mom. And so all of a sudden it stops right over Tampa Bay and it's hovering over the water. And I'm like, why doesn't everybody see this? I'm
Right.
driving 65 miles an hour on the Howard Franklin Bridge. Why isn't people slamming on their brakes? But they weren't. And I thought, oh my goodness, they are revealing to Joshua and I,
Yep.
and do other people even see this? And so I'm telling him, just keep your eyes on this, Josh. So we get to the other side over to St. Pete, and all of a sudden, those three lights move over right over Sawgrass Lake, and they start going down into the lake. And we're coming along this way, and Josh is hanging out. I had a Cadillac CTS. He puts the window down. He's sitting outside of my car while I'm doing 65 miles an hour with my cell phone, trying to get a picture. These three lights turned and morphed into a huge black triangle with lights all the way around it.
Wow.
And I'm like, it morphed. How does that happen?
Right.
How can that happen? Well, at the time, I was a certified field investigator. I was a assistant state director with Florida MUFON. And so I'm like, I know this can happen, but I've never seen it happen. And Josh was freaking out, screaming at the top of his lungs, oh my God, did you see it? It just changed. Now it's a triangle. And I'm like, get in the car.
Yeah, right.
Get in the car.
Right.
You know, and please don't drop my cell phone. And, you know, I'm absolutely freaked out. And it just goes right down into the lake. And I'm like, what the heck?
Right.
You know, none of the trees, not even one leaf moved on those trees. And I'm looking up and driving and looking up and driving and looking up and driving and thinking, you've got to be kidding me. This cannot be happening.
Right.
Why are not other people seeing this? Yeah. Nobody saw it. And he saw it, and we it's a long drawn out thing that happened, but when we got home, I said, you go into that room with a paper and pencil, you draw what you saw.
Yep.
I'm drawing what I saw over here. We came together in the kitchen and we both had exactly the same thing. 3 lights and then this morph. Well, I was talking to Lou Elizondo at one of the MUFON board meetings in about 2015. And I told him about this experience and he goes, yeah, Teri, no kidding. That is for real. We have seen that craft. That is a powerful craft. And I'm like, thank you for validating that for me. And he said, yeah, not too many people see the morphing ones. You know, they see the cloaked ones, but they don't see the morphing. And I said, not only did we see it, we saw it unmorph, which freaked us both out totally and made an instant believer in my son. So anyway, amazing. That's one of our a couple of our stories.
Amazing. Wow.
They are amazing. They truly are amazing.
You just kind of got thrown into it at 27 too.
Yes. Yeah, I did. And my whole family then, I found out from, you know, speaking about it.
Yep.
Yes. 70 years of people. And no one of us ever talked about it. It was me that started asking the questions. And I was the only one in the family that ever spoke about it, you know, and my mother retired from Honeywell. So there was no way she was going to say anything. Right. My sister worked for Honeywell, but she got laid off too. And me and her never went back. Right. Yeah. But, yeah, I always had hoped that we would, but that didn't happen.
That makes me wonder if other aerospace employees maybe had sightings or abductions, because I know that's common.
That's right, like Bob Lazar, maybe.
Right, right.
Talk about him, you know, working at Area 51. It is very strange. I don't know that has anything to do with it, since my mother and my brother had seen those things happen years before. Yeah. But as of 1979, it became commonplace for me. And ever since then, I have seen many sightings. I have had, you know, CE5 issue, you know, things that have happened. And again, out of 10 people, only 5 will see something. Right. And that has always really, you know, freaked me out, because how can they do that? how can they decipher who will see and who will not?
Right.
It's their choice. They are in charge. When they are present with us, we are not in charge as much as we would like to be. We're not. I mean,
Yeah.
they made me open my car door.
Yeah.
I got out. They called me out of that car. They are in charge. You are in some kind of control of theirs, and it's definitely not of this world. It's
Right.
not something that we experience on a daily basis here.
Right.
We just don't, you know.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued by that.
Yeah.
Are you still in Florida, or you're in Central
No.
Time? Are you in...
Yeah, no, I'm now moved to Paris, Tennessee, and it's very cold here today.
Oh.
49. I wish I was in Florida. No,
Yeah.
but we're in this little city here in Tennessee, and we just really felt that this is where we were supposed to come. So we sold everything in Florida and moved here.
Right.
Yeah, I love Florida. My sister lives in Titusville, so it's
Oh yeah,
right by the Kennedy Space Center, and
yeah.
you can see there was a launch last time I was there, and I got up at 4 a.m. to watch it.
Yep.
I mean, it's only this big, but it's still cool to
I
see a
know.
rocket take off. You know, I don't see that in California.
Yeah.
You know, we'll see Vandenberg launches things once in a while, but
Right.
it's interesting.
Yes, it is.
So you're also a demonologist.
Yes, I
Tell
am.
us a little bit about that. That's interesting.
Okay. Well, like I had mentioned, I was a churchgoer and I was a little Christian girl raising my two boys, you know, at church. And it was 1973 when I became a very strong Christian dedicated to the Lord. And in 1975, I was at this one church and I met this pastor, and he was an actual demonologist, and he would go out and pray for people that were having these weird happenings, things moving in their home, or weird shadows, or strange things that would come upon them and they weren't acting normal, you know. And he was not a single guy, but he was married, but his wife had 2 kids and she couldn't always go with him.
Right.
So he was looking for somebody that would go with him. And he asked the congregation, who will go with me? His name was Don Husted. And I raised my hand and said, well, I will, you know, I mean, I don't know why I'm doing this, but
Right.
my hand just
I'll do it.
flew
Right.
over.
Right.
I'm telling you, we are controlled here by
Compelled.
either the
Yeah.
the saints and the spirits, or
Right.
you know, a lot's going on
Yeah.
here, you guys. A lot is
Yeah.
happening on this planet. You know, we are situated right in the middle of it all here.
Yeah.
But anyway, my hand shot up and I went and I thought, ooh, what am I doing? You know, and off I went with it.
I have no control over it. It just went up.
Sure, I'll do it. I don't know why, but I'm gonna do it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I'm the idiot that'll go. Not another hand went up,
Right.
only mine. And so he goes, well, yeah, I guess you'll go with me, Terry. No, no. And so anyway, I started going with him, and we would go and pray with people. And man, some of the things I saw were very frightening. Although I will say, nothing like The Exorcist, okay?
Right.
Really?
Because that was all Hollywoodized.
Yeah.
But I saw demons and people that, I'm telling you, it's frightening. There's a new movie out. I forget the name of it. But the man is possessed by a demon. Go see that movie, because I'm telling you, that movie is the bomb. That is exactly
Oh, really?
what it's truly like. I'm trying to think of the name. It's
Is it
one
out?
word.
Is it out now?
It's out right now, yeah.
Huh.
Oh, and we just went and saw it, but you know, I'm getting so
Yeah.
much older.
Yeah.
I forget things.
I'm right there
I'll
with
think
you.
of it.
Yeah. Send the link if you
Anyway.
remember.
Send me, just send me the email.
I'll
So
send
it's
it
this.
in the email.
Yeah.
I remember now. That's how I am.
Yes.
That's
It'll
exactly
come
how
to me.
I
It
do
always does.
Yeah,
Right.
it
I'll
comes
be
in,
thinking
just takes a minute.
Yeah, or 2.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's such a good, and you know, Don and I would go in, and this one home in particular, all the drapes were drawn. The mother and the father lived there with the daughter, and we walked in, and I was like, oh my God, the daughter was sitting in the chair, And just the minute my eyes fell on her, I knew, oh my God, this is creepy. And she just had this weird look on her face. Her eyes were crazed. I mean, really crazed. But she was just a short, brown-haired girl.
Right.
Very thin. I mean, ridiculously thin, and looked like death eating a biscuit. And
Oh wow.
I said to Don, ooh, and the whole room, they had those big, thick gold drapes, and they were all closed, and it just felt warm and hot in that room and dark. And I asked for the drapes to be opened. I said, please open the drapes. Let's let the light in. And we opened the drapes, and she started screaming. She hated the light. And I said, well, I don't care if she hates the light. I need to see. I can't see. And they had light, their little lights on in the room, but it was like so pitiful. It was only 11:30 in the daytime, and it was beautiful outside. Open the windows. Well, the parents said she doesn't like the windows open, and she doesn't like the drapes pulled. She likes it hot, and she likes it dark. And I'm like, well, I'm here and I don't. We're going to take over now, and in a loving way, of course. And I was very diplomatic about it, but I just said, well, I need to be able to see my notes. I can barely see in here, and so we prayed for her. And the minute we said the name of Jesus, this girl went ballistic.
Oh, wow.
I mean, she was biting at us, reaching out with her teeth.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, my gosh. I'm telling you. And I said to Don, holy moly, this is nuts. And I said, she is really just enveloped in a demonic spirit. Yeah. And you could just see the hate in her eyes. You could say anything, but if you said the name of Jesus, she went nuts. Right. And I just said, okay, let's not say that until we have to say that. Let's speak directly to her. And what had happened, we had found out from the parents, is she had taken a drug overdose and tried to kill herself. Right. But she didn't die. Yeah. And so she's still alive now, and she's obviously possessed. Right. And we prayed and rebuked and bound her. And after being there a few times, you could say the name of Jesus, everything was fine. Right. And we saw a change in this girl. She needed to forgive herself for trying to kill herself, when in fact it didn't work. And it left her in this semi-vegetable state that she now, this was her new reality. This was her life. Right. And, she didn't die and couldn't even kill herself at this point. She was so badly vegetableized in a sense. But at least she found peace in it all. And her parents then could open the drapes, and things were getting better. And we only spent maybe 3 months on that. But there were many other things that had happened. I had seen a full-bodied apparition of somebody standing in my house at one point shortly after these things had happened. And I'd never seen a full-bodied apparition ever before. I hadn't even heard about it, to be quite frank. And so this was a new experience for me. And I said to the person, John, what are you doing in my house? Right. And it was just all of a sudden there. It was just standing in the doorway. And then I said, what are you doing in my bedroom? I actually knew this person. Oh, wow. I actually knew this person. And I thought the person was standing in my house. And then I'm like, what are you doing standing in my bedroom? Right. And all of a sudden, this tornadic effect went around this spirit. And I realized it wasn't a human being at all. Right. I'm looking at something I can not only see through, but now something demonic is coming up out of it. Nothing. I had never imagined something like that was a possibility. And this demon was so strong. It had so much power. It was fully like a human being dressed in clothes. I mean, it looked like I could reach out and shake the person's hand. And yet, the minute I questioned it, what are you doing in my bedroom? It went tornadic, and this face came out of this.
Damn. Oh, no.
I could not even move. The term frozen in fear is a factual term.
Yeah.
You are literally frozen to the point where you're like, you can't move.
Right.
And I didn't know what to do. I couldn't speak. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. I could only watch this thing doing this craziness around me. And I heard in my left ear, spell his name. See it. And I'm like, whose name? What? How?
Right.
What? And I went, okay. His name, whose name? The Lord's name? What's his name? And I'm like, I don't even know his name. And all of a sudden I heard J, and I saw a J.
Oh.
And then I thought, what? I think there's maybe E, and the whole time I'm doing this, that thing is tornadic, and this face is coming more more out at me.
That's crazy.
I'm serious. Before God's throne, I tell you, I'll give an account for this. It's the truth. Scared the hell out of me, literally. And then I could see an E, but I still didn't know the name. That's the power these demonic forces can have. When people are playing with the demonic realm and they don't really know what they're doing,
right.
Man, you can be completely immobilized by these things. That's why people should not use the Ouija board. They should not call these things into play. They have power. I felt the power in that room, and it had me frozen in fear. And then I went, S, I think there's an S. And when I saw the S, I saw J-E-S, and I screamed out, Jesus! And the minute that left my mouth, this thing turned and ran down the hallway in my home and slammed the door in my children's bedroom. Mean, slammed the door so hard it was like it was going to come off. So when slamming doors happen, I want you to know that is very real. And these things can happen by powerful spirits that have that kind of control. And so I got up and ran out of the house as fast as my legs could get me out the door. And once outside of the house, I just stood there outside going like this, going like, oh, what was that? What was that? And then I realized, oh, it's still in there. It's in my children's room.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Right. I gotta go back in. And nobody was there. I was home alone. And I thought, I got to go back in. So I opened the door, and I'm shaking like a leaf. And I'm like, I know if I say the name of Jesus, and now I could remember Jesus's name. At the time, that thing had so much power, it literally took all of my thinking away from me.
Right.
Don't forget that. These things can take hold of your thoughts. And so I was like, oh my God, don't forget the name of Jesus. And I opened the door, and I walked in the house. I turned on all the lights, broad daylight. And I'm turning on lights because I'm so scared. I'm like, I want the light bulbs on. I want the light bulbs.
All of them.
All the lights.
Every one of them.
Light in the house. I'm flipping switches. And I walk in, and I get into the first room, and then I step up. We had a sunken first room. And I step up and go to that area. I walk past through my little breezeway thing in the middle of the house, and then I get to the hall, and I'm so scared. I'm just like, oh God, help me. And I'm like, I gotta open this door. I don't know what I'm gonna see. I don't want to see it, and I put my hand on the door, and I gotta tell you, this is the most powerful testimony, the most powerful thing I could ever share with anybody. The minute my hand touched the doorknob, it was like something came over me. I wasn't afraid anymore. Now I had such a righteous anger. I was so angry. I had so much power. I turned that knob, and that fear face I was wearing turned into this face of, I am coming for you.
Right.
And I opened that door, and I stood there going, get out of my house in the name of Jesus. And there was nothing in the room. And I was standing in the room alone and saying, I don't know where you went, but you came here, and you get out. And I mean, I was so angry. That's the difference that having strength and knowledge and power, over fear, I conquered fear that day. And it reminded me that I had read something in the scriptures before that said Jesus was in the Gerasene tombs, and he came up to a demoniac, and the demoniac was rolling in the fire and throwing himself on the ground and spitting and puking and doing all kinds of bizarre things. And Jesus simply said to him, "Who are you?" And the man spoke back and said, "We are Legion."
Wow.
And I thought, isn't that interesting? One man, one woman could have a legion of demons. And this demon that came to me that day obviously was to teach and train me to overcome my fear.
Right.
Of course, I didn't see it that way at the time. I was scared out of my wits.
Right.
But once I got into that room, everything changed. And I then knew I had been called to do this, which is why I even do it today. When somebody calls and says, we're having problems, things are moving, doors are slamming, I'm like, I'll be right there. That's no big deal. I got this. Right. And, and yet most people like to play with the demons, but remember, you can get a legion of them in one person. And I'm like, the more you play, the more open doors you're giving them, and the more jam-packed you are getting. And it'll change your personality. It'll change everything about you. So true demoniac things are very frightening, but most people don't live in that reality. They live in the reality that, we're going to call them and chase them and play with them and talk to them. And
wow.
Not a good idea.
No, I don't want to play with them.
Yeah.
They don't play back.
No.
They lie.
I didn't know the Ouija board. I've seen a movie called Ouija, and it was really scary. Have you seen that movie? Oh, it's scary.
No.
It is scary. And I don't really get scared on movies, but that one really freaked me out.
Yeah.
I was like, it was at night, and I was watching it with one of my sons.
I've never used a Ouija board. We had one in our house when we moved in there years ago, and I threw it away. I'm like, I don't even want it in my house.
That was very smart.
Yeah, my mother.
It is a portal. We can call these things to us through portals. We can by just simply going, like even I had a girlfriend who had a Buddha, and she had all these little lights around it, like she was literally worshiping this thing.
Right.
And all of a sudden, her personality changed. Everything about her changed. And I don't mean for the better.
Right.
And I said, get that out of there. You're worshiping a hunk of wood.
Right.
Get that out of there. That thing cannot do anything for you.
Yeah, right.
And once she got rid of it, she said, I actually feel like the whole house feels lighter.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you, I've seen the light come into a room versus that darkness, impending darkness.
Right.
Have any of you ever? Where are you located?
We're in Sacramento area in California.
That's right, Sacramento area. Okay. Well, there's a place here called, not here. It's in Kentucky, called the Octagon Square. Have you ever heard of that?
I haven't.
The Octagon.
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, there's this place, and it's an octagon home, which back in the day, the Masons built these octagon homes back in the early 17 and 1800s, and they would have like 13 steps going up and 13 steps going down into the basements. And they were very, very peculiar homes built by the Masons.
Right.
And a lot of weird things used to happen in some of these homes because they were made into hospitals back in the Civil War time. And the one that's in Kentucky, Octagon Hall, is known as a place of extreme hauntings and extreme happening. So I did not know about it. I had only heard that Octagon Hall was a place some friends of mine go and visit it. Well, nobody told me.
Oh, no.
And so I walked in and opened the door, and within 2 seconds, boom, boom, these two spirits came at me so fast.
Oh, shit.
And I'm like, whoa,
right.
whoa. And somebody said to me, what? And I said, man, there is this man and there's this woman that just came at me so fast. I felt like they were pushing me out. And yet I walked in. And I found out later, after talking to the curator, that many people had died in that house. Right. And he didn't tell me much more about it. So I'm going outside and I'm walking around outside. And as I'm standing there, he's up here watching me. He knows so much more than I know. And I knew nothing. And I stood there and I looked down and I went, oh my God, I'm standing on 1,000. And we both said this at the same time. Fingers.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, oh my God, I'm standing on 1,000. And he said fingers and I said fingers. And I said, how is that possible? How could all these fingers be underneath my feet, under the ground? And he said, Teri, this house in the Civil War times is where they would bring the soldiers that had gotten frostbite, and to save their lives, they would have to amputate all their fingers. And they would put fingers and toes in buckets. And then they would dig holes and bury them out back. And you are standing on 1,000 fingers. And I said, I can feel it. I can feel it. Wow. The sadness that was coming up to me. It was so powerful. And I'm not a psychic. I'm just very sensitive to these things.
Right.
And, you know, it's so real, these things. People need to understand how real and how strange the world actually is here. Right. Lots of craziness can happen here, especially where they used to hang the black slaves. Oh, my God, the pain I felt. There was a place out back. There was a tree, and I looked at the tree, and I said to the curator, oh, my gosh, I'm seeing people hanging from that tree. And he said, yes, that is where they hung the slaves that tried to get away. Right. They hung them. Wow. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And the sadness that came over me, because those poor, wonderful people were so mistreated.
Yep.
And, you know, it's just horrifying. Yeah. What we have done as humans through the generations of this earth, and all of it is collected here. You know, you and I, you know, we're all alive here right now, but so many have been and died. Right. Yeah. But their energy is still here. The spirit lives on and goes, but that energy from the carcasses we all wear, this is just a carcass. Yep. We don't take it with us. We go on, you know, but it's just amazing stuff, you guys. Yeah.
Nice.
Do you believe in reincarnation?
You know, I'm still going back and forth with that. I am. I would love somebody to do a think tank with me or help me with that, because the Jews from the early genealogy of Jews talked about it, but I don't see anything to really back it up. I feel like there is a possibility that it's very real, but I need proof. Everything that has happened to me, seeing the extraterrestrials, seeing the crafts, seeing the demonics, seeing the spirits, I don't need anybody to teach me that, because I personally experienced it.
Right.
But reincarnation, I do have a experience from when I was 3. And I remember going down, sinking in the ocean like I was dying. Some ship must have either been bombed or it crashed or something.
Right.
But I remembered going down and I could see these really bizarre fish before I was dead that were eating humans at the bottom. And these were way at the bottom of the ocean, way down deep. And I remember seeing them, and they had almost like hands and almost like feet, and they would go after these people and they would start eating them as they were dead, drowned and dead. And I thought, oh no, that's going to happen to me, you know. And I was only just a baby when I had those thoughts. Right. And how does a little 3-year-old
come up with
think something like that?
Right.
And I thought, is that a memory?
Right.
Did I die in a you know, boat?
Yeah, a ship or something. Yeah, that's weird.
You know, I don't know. Why would a little girl think a stupid thought like that? And, you know, when I was born, I hate to admit this, but TVs had just come out for the first time.
Right.
And I remember we were one of the first families that had a TV in our home. And everybody would come over with their beer and
watch TV.
up and watch
right.
the TV at our house, you know, because no one on the block had one.
Right.
And I never watched anything that could have given me a thought of something like that.
Right.
So how did that happen?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Past life.
The jury is out. I would love to hear about that. I'm very intrigued. I've had a near-death experience. That's how I became a Christian.
Right.
I actually had an experience, a spiritual experience. And that's the only reason I became a Christian, is I saw that in this world, truth does overrule evil and good does overrule bad. Yeah. We do have them. You know, anybody with half a brain would know there's good and evil. Right. There's black and white. There's, you know, the yin and the yang. We have these two sides of the coin. And this is why I became a Christian. Right. So, yeah, I mean, I'd love for somebody to reach out to me about reincarnation.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Are you
about
on the fence too?
I'm on the fence. I'm not.
Yeah.
I need a little bit of, you know, facts and things.
I need proof.
Yeah.
They have those little children
stories. Yep.
Who come back.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that is so freaky to me. I'm like, wow. Yeah. And they even have named who killed them. And then a cold case file was closed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. Is it true? Is it true?
They talk about
I need it to happen to me.
They talk about other families, and they have all this information.
Sisters, brothers.
Yes, yeah. I'm actually I would consider I believe from these stories. I mean, where would these kids get this from?
Exactly, yeah. And it makes me want to believe, but wanting to believe and knowing
are two different things.
I want to know. I want to know that I know, and I want to have proof. Yeah. You know, I'm just somebody that don't tell me something if you can't back it up.
Right, yeah, hard facts.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
We got a few minutes left, and I just wanted to ask about, you know, disclosures coming. Well, we hope disclosures coming. Do you think that's gonna happen? I mean, are we gonna be able to?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely, it is gonna happen because, believe me, it already has.
Yeah.
One-on-one, individually, anybody who has ever had an experience like mine, or even similar to mine. I know everybody's is different and unique to their own personality.
Right.
But they have revealed to me. And here's my question to all of your listeners, to anybody who's within the sound of my voice. Who do you need to tell you the truth?
Right.
If the truth has happened to you, isn't that enough?
Yeah.
If something has happened to you where you have been disclosed to personally, who else do you need to hear it from? The government?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, what about them proclaiming it is going to make it any more true than it already is when you've experienced it?
Yeah.
So do I need disclosure? No, I have disclosure.
Right.
And of course, you know, I spoke at the MUFON symposium about the alien healing that I had. And of course, we don't have time to go into that, but
part two.
You can.
We'll have to do a part two on that.
We'll do a part two.
Definitely.
Part two. Yeah. And it was also a reptilian that healed me, reptilian hybrid.
Wow.
So it's very interesting stuff. Happened in 2012. That was a very powerful year for my whole family, 2012. But yeah, part two.
Yes, cool. Definitely.
We're going to wrap it up before we have any more internet problems. Sorry about that.
I know. You love technology when it works.
Right.
I said the most high-powered guest I've ever had, and the internet has to fall out.
Yeah, of course. Right?
So you guys are going to hear it threaded right at about 10 minutes. That's what happened. Thanks for listening to the latest episode of the Alien Probe Podcast. We welcome questions, comments, or requests to alienprobepodcast@gmail.com. Visit us on Facebook. Check out our website, alienprobe.net, Twitter and Instagram at alienprobepod. Like and subscribe at YouTube. Teri, thank you very much. Appreciate it. It was a good interview.
Oh,
and
so nice to be with
Matt,
you too.
thank you.
I loved it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You two are awesome.
We're going to do a
Keep
part
doing
two.
what you're doing.
Hope you had it. Watch the skies, everybody.
That's right.
Yes. Keep looking up.
See you next time.